Welcome back to the Act Two podcast, a podcast for the real-life working screenwriter. I'm Tasha Hugh.
And I am Josh Hallman.
And as a reminder, Act Two is a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. That's you. This podcast is just one of the resources that we have. Thank you for joining us here.
What if the podcast just ended right after you said that? That's you.
Rate and subscribe. And then it's just over. Mm-hmm. But please remember to rate and subscribe. Also, you can write a comment. And that's really helpful to us because A, it helps us keep going.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a bad comment, weirdly, that also helps us keep going because it makes us want to do better. But it also hurts our feelings.
Yeah.
It's a win-lose there. But please just engage, because the more that you do, the bigger our community becomes, and the more helpful it really is to just everybody. And you know, Josh,
yeah,
we're going to get into this in the episode, but I went to San Diego Comic-Con, and a lot of writers go to Comic-Con, and something that they were all craving was community. People who could support them and understand them, and that they could just talk to creatively about things. And that's what we have created here. So rate, subscribe, DM us with questions, topics, suggestions, ActTwoWriters@gmail.com, all spelled out. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at ActTwoWriters. I'm Story Thursday on Instagram, Tasha 3.0 on Twitter.
I'm Joshua Hallman on Twitter. Josh Hallman on Instagram. Tasha, I need to fire us up a little bit. I feel like today's a great day. And I'm just feeling good right now. And we haven't been on the podcast in a while. I feel like I haven't seen you in a minute because it was a crazy week for both of us last week, I think. And then you disappeared into the Comic-Con vortex.
Yeah.
And you reappeared out of the vortex, which was great.
I'm glad I didn't disappear. I felt like I was for a second. It's rough out there.
We're going to talk about it today. I do have some Comic-Con questions that probably will sound a little judgmental.
I can't wait for them. I was hoping you would, and I'm ready. So yes, Josh and I haven't seen each other for a while because we release our episodes on Mondays, and we couldn't record because I was in Comic-Con in San Diego. So here we are. We're kind of a week late talking about it, so I hope people are still jazzed or still even remember what it is. But I have a lot to say about it. So this week is kind of just talking about that, as well as some sort of this week's in writings, or just things that have gone on since I last saw Josh. So we're kind of catching up with each other in live time.
More importantly, we got to talk about Twisters. We got to talk about Deadpool Wolverine. I'm so excited. Oh man.
That's gonna be a great episode. Okay. Let me get through like the business stuff, which feels like Comic-Con, because I want to get to the fun movie stuff. Okay. For those of you who have no idea what the hell Comic-Con is, Josh Hallman, it's amazing. It is the best, most exhausting weekend you will ever have. If you are someone who loves video games, fantasy, sci-fi, animation, anime, superheroes, comic books, role-playing tabletop games, this is the place you need to be. It is an entire extended weekend of Hollywood creating these fun experiences, these great panels for all of your favorite TV shows. Also creatives, the people who create the content that you love, whether they are book authors, comic book writers, artists of comic books, VFX people, like all the people who create the stuff that we listen to this podcast for, go to Comic-Con, and they have panels and they talk about their craft, and it is so fun. For example, we went to a Silo panel. Common and Rebecca Ferguson were there. Graham Yost, who's the showrunner, was there. And that's just a sci-fi show. Like, my mom watches that show. It's not necessarily just nerd fandom that goes to Comic-Con anymore. So, again, in my opinion, if you love movies and TV, you will really enjoy Comic-Con. However, that being said, it is a commitment. Yesterday, Paul was driving to Burbank, and we live like 20 to 30 minutes away from Burbank. And he texted me and he goes, "Oh man, the distance I'm about to drive to Burbank right now is how far I walked on the first day of Comic-Con." So he's basically walking to Burbank. That's how much you walk. And like, my body was broken at a certain point. By day 3, I was just done. It was hot, but it's all worth it.
Yeah.
Josh, you've never been to Comic-Con? Would never go to Comic-Con? Answer these questions.
I'll definitely go to, I'm not saying I would never go, but I have never been to Comic-Con. I'm interested in Comic-Con.
Let me paint you a picture, okay?
Okay.
You drive into downtown San Diego. It's beautiful. The light off of the mountains, reflecting off of the water, and all of the streets downtown are blocked off to just foot traffic.
Oh
so
my
downtown San Diego becomes this pedestrian city. And the convention center is this huge building that runs along the entire marina and overlooks the water. It's beautiful. And then just in front of the convention center is the Gaslamp District. So it has a ton of restaurants and shops and clubs and stuff. It's great. And if you have a Comic-Con badge, you can go into the convention center, you can do all the panels, blah, blah, blah. If you don't, you can still go out into the city and go to all these really cool experiences. Like, for example, Paul and I went to Moxie's Bar, which if you ever have played the video game Borderlands, you know what that is. And it's this really cool, like, faithful recreation of this video game bar. And it's because there's a movie adaptation of Borderlands coming out in August. So you go in and you feel like you're in the video game. We get a free drink. We got to play games and get free swag. It was amazing. There's stuff like that just all over town.
Yeah, no, that sounds fantastic. That sounds like a great experience if you're into that stuff. Which I would be into it, like if I go to Universal and then I'm going on like Jurassic World, Jurassic Park or something, I'm geeking out. I love it.
It's the same exact thing. So part of my point too is it's not just video game stuff. Like Paul went to a Winchester pub recreation, which is from the movie Shaun of the Dead.
I would be all over that. You had me at pub.
100%. And they recreated the whole thing. You just go inside. And then they had, what is the show that is coming out on Peacock? Those Who Are About to Die. It's basically a gladiator show. They had a whole activation experience thing where these dudes in robes and Roman robes were playing giant drums and they were announcing you to come in, and then you could like drive horses through the Colosseum.
Here's where I have hangups with conventions and things like Comic-Con. This is just me in general. Large groups of people that are walking in different directions.
Yeah.
Let's go, like, if you go to Universal or something like that, and it's just like peak hours, and you're trying to get through, and you're trying to get somewhere. Yeah. And people are stopping to take photos, but you're on a mission to get to, somewhere. That drives me crazy.
It's upsetting.
It just, like, it almost is to the extent of me being like, I'm going home. I can't
agree.
deal with this. You can't take a photo in the middle of the walkway.
I completely understand that. You can barely walk at certain peak times. Yeah. What I will say to that, I am very much that person as well. I would rather be at home than be anywhere near that shit. However, all the people are such nerds that it's like fun to walk around even when you're like doing what, the Comic-Con shuffle is what they call it, because you can't like take full steps sometimes. They look amazing. Like they're so cool looking, and like Comic-Con shuffle. And like it's all these weird fandom. Like some girl was dressed up as Rainbow Bright, which like who's seen that since the 80s? Nobody, but cool. Like you look awesome. So part of it is just like you're just so in awe of the stuff around you that you sort of don't realize you're doing the Comic-Con shuffle. However, there are also times like we went up around 5 p.m. So like the main hall closes at 7. So around 5 p.m., like there was no one there, which is like, I can just walk like a normal person. So if you just, the way I see it is you do the con however you want to. And if your thing is, I don't want to be around people, just go when there aren't people, when the people are doing other things.
Couple things. Yeah. Number 1, Rainbow Bright adaptation.
Why not?
Badass. Could you do it?
Yeah.
When you said that, I thought, oh yeah, I could see Tasha writing like a Rainbow Bright stuck in like the Darklands somewhere trying to get out. That's number 1.
Oh, that's cool.
Number 2, can I get into the nitty gritty of Comic-Con here?
Yes, please.
Did you see any Lara Crofts at Comic-Con?
I did.
And did you stop them?
Yes, I took a picture of them.
Did you ask them how they're feeling about the upcoming show on Netflix in October?
No.
Oh.
I'm always embarrassed to do that. Just like, cool costume, you look awesome. But surely she is, right? But also, what if I asked her and she's like, it looks like a flaming garbage pile of shit. And I'd be like, oh, I agree. That's stupid.
Sorry, I'm Lara Croft from Angelina Jolie days. And that's mine. And I'll never see any other one. Yeah. Did you dress up?
I did. On our second day, Paul and I dressed up as Mizu. Yes. From Blue Eye Samurai. And I was obviously Mizu. And then Paul was Ringo, her handless apprentice. So he wore socks over his hands. He so good.
And he was taking them off when he had to drink water or something?
No, he specifically got socks that he could like hold things with if he needed to and like use his phone. But he would walk around like this to get his little stubs up. And people loved it. People were taking pictures of us, stopping us and asking if they could take pictures with us and stuff. I think we killed it.
Was anyone else dressed like that?
I saw 2 other people dressed as Mizu, but nobody had a Ringo. And like Paul, if you don't know Paul and you've never seen him, he's built like Ringo. So it was like perfect.
Dude, I'd go to Comic-Con. I'd dress up.
It's an experience. It's worth going once, and then you might get a high from it that you may want to go again and again.
So in the writing world, you went to some panels.
I did. That's another thing. So before I was ever a professional screenwriter, I would go to Comic-Con and go to all these writer panels because holy shit, the amount of resources that are available to you are insane. And it's just for the cost of a badge over the course of the whole weekend. You can go to so many panels. It's so cool. So I went to 2 panels that are worth talking about and that apply to writing specifically that I like was texting Josh about. So I thought I might as well talk about on the podcast. So the first one was the science of male versus female superpowers, which was hosted by this woman named Joy Lynn, who is a teacher by day and a comedian and a comic book writer by night. And she did a bunch of research around the representation of male versus female superheroes. And it's great too, because this is Comic-Con, by the way, like it's a panel. It's, there's going to be infographics and, data and research and stuff that she's doing a whole hour-long presentation, but she was at the podium in a Wonder Woman outfit. It's great. So I'm not going to talk through the whole thing. Like the whole thing was very interesting, but like writing wise, I thought a couple things were interesting that at least I'm going to take with me when I start thinking about how I'm going to convey or create my own characters and my own stuff, which is she said that male heroes tend to have very cool weapons and gadgets. Typically, they just tend to fight. I mean, superheroes, whatever. Like I think this holds true for just action male heroes in general. Whereas female heroes tend to do a lot more hand-to-hand stuff and like have psychic powers. So they aren't actually fighting. They just can make you go crazy, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Oh shit. Oh, that is interesting.
Right?
Okay.
And then she said that, she actually had, numbers to this. So the number of female superheroes who fought with a weapon was 285. And the number of female superheroes who fought without a weapon was 4,542.
Really?
Yes. And of course, almost every male superhero has a weapon of some kind. Almost. Some like Vision, they just use whatever, but...
Yeah. Wait, is Superman weaponless?
Superman would be weaponless. His body is his weapon.
Okay. I didn't know if his eye lasers would constitute as a weapon.
I don't think so, because I think specifically she's talking about like cool gadgets and stuff that they have at their disposal, like an Iron Man situation.
Oh, so cool.
I know. Another common thing she found was that female superheroes, again, often have psychic powers, and their core issue is about how they cannot control them. They cannot control their emotions, basically. Like Wanda or Jean Grey from X-Men. But this is the one that I found really interesting for writers, and I think for people who create stories, is that there are more male villains in comics and comic book movie adaptations than there are female superheroes in their entirety. So there are more male villains in all of DC and all of Marvel than the complete number of female hero characters, which means writers are not allowing women to be villains. And there are actually several panels at Comic-Con that I wish I was able to go to, but just couldn't make them work, about how we need more women villains or just allow female characters to behave badly, to make bad choices, to be unappealing, to be anti-heroic instead of whatever, these beacons of light that they tend to be. So, yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Could I ask a question that's non-misogynistic and just general, like, hey, I'm just curious.
Well, now I'm wondering, is it really?
By the way, Tasha is drinking out of the largest Fall Guy cup I've ever seen in my entire life, and it's awesome.
It's big as my torso.
It's coming off the screen. Did they break down the last 10 to 15 years if there's been any change, or was this like in its entirety and that was like a blanket number for the women not like whatever you were just talking about.
They did, yeah. There was a chart about it getting better, but like marginally better, but better. It's definitely trending in the right direction.
Hey, wondering.
Yeah.
Just one man wondering.
It's true.
Okay.
It's true.
All right.
Okay. But the real panel I want to talk about is the one that I was like texting you late at night that I thought was very interesting, which was a panel about the psychology behind action movies.
Yeah, I was all in.
Oh, so good. So this panel was led by 3 psychologists from Marshall University. You can follow them on Facebook or Instagram, probably Twitter, at Marshall UConn Family. And they're interesting. They are a mix of clinical psychologists, professors of psychology, researchers, and they did this nationwide study from all age groups, all genders, asking people a series of questions, both about their mental health and also about their favorite action movies. And then they made a correlation between different things they found about their mental health with the different action movies that they tended to like. And I thought their findings were incredibly interesting, as well as mildly upsetting. Okay, so I'm just gonna get here. Okay, top 15 action movies, according to this national psychology study. Are you even ready for this, Joshua?
I'm not.
You can't even possibly guess what apparently the nation thinks are the top 15 action movies.
Go.
Fist of Fury. This is in order.
Okay.
Fist of Fury, Dirty Harry, Cobra, Mad Max Fury Road, Speed, properly in the group, Rumble in the Bronx, Mission Impossible 3.
3. Wow.
Raging Bull. That
What?
an action movie? 300, Terminator, Independence Day, Hard Boiled, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. That means people love the second one the best.
This is flawed already.
Fast and the Furious, RoboCop.
Did you say Mr. and Mrs. Smith or no?
No.
No True Lies.
No.
No Mr.
Well,
and Mrs. Smith.
No.
No Die Hard.
Nope.
This is flawed.
It's completely flawed. But this is the data.
I would have walked out.
I was so tempted to rage quit this panel so many times. What's more interesting is this list of top 15 action movies, which is according to a bunch of idiots apparently, also scored very high for people who are depressed. Meaning the people who picked these top 15 movies all tended to score very high in the mental health portion of this study as having depressive tendencies. So these movies were escapism for him. These were the top 15 most like escapist movies for people who were depressed.
Dirty Harry was number 2, did you say?
Dirty Harry was number 2. Yeah. And this was a group that ranged from Gen Z all the way to baby boomers. So it's not like this is a list that encompasses Gen Z as well and their opinions.
If there's a Gen Z person listening right now and you can tell me what Dirty Harry and Fists of Fury are, well, I don't know where I was going with that, but there's no way. There's no way. All right. But anyway.
Okay. This is where you're really going to lose your shit though, Josh. This is where I had a problem. They also did a top 15 worst action movies list, according to this national study. I need to prepare. I'm just looking at this list. It's making me upset. Whew. Okay. Starts off slow. The Dirty Dozen: Next Mission. The Delta Force.
Wait, stop. This was the worst?
Top 15 worst action movies in order of the amount people disliked them.
Okay.
The Dirty Dozen: Next Mission. The Delta Force. Top Gun: Maverick.
Stop. Done.
Total Recall. Ong Bak, which I do not know.
Oh.
The Legend...
Classic on Bach. Wait, what? That's a classic. What the? Okay.
The Legend of Drunken Master, John Wick Chapter 3, Inception, Bad Boys 2, The Last Boy Scout, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back.
What?
This is where it gets rough. The Dark Knight, The Warriors, Mission Impossible 2, and then the worst action movie, according to a national study, Joshua, True Lies.
You're stop. There is Tasha. I know you didn't make this list. I'm not mad at you. But I don't know where to get angry. I don't know who to be angry
red
at.
right now.
I am. I'm like...
I don't know. Go find these people on Facebook and direct your anger there because...
What are their names again?
Where do they live?
I want to see their findings. I'm going to have them. I'm going to try to get them on the podcast.
I think that's actually a great idea. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Oh, I am red. Jesus Christ. I'm so angry.
I'm really hot right now. This next bit is also very interesting. Maybe my favorite one. So not only did they sort of ask questions to sort of determine your depression, but also other psychoses like narcissism, right? People who scored very high on the scale of people who thought they were just incredibly awesome and also didn't care what other people thought of them, right? Narcissists. So when they looked at narcissists and their favorite movies, there was a commonality among narcissists. And there are only 2 movies that fell into this category of action movies that narcissists consistently loved. Avengers Endgame and Die Hard.
Classic and classic. I don't even know what to say about all of this. I don't know why they weren't on any other lists that were like the top. This is ridiculous. This is terrible. I'm looking at the findings of this. I swear to God, I'm going to go into a deep dive and I'm going to rebuke. This is terrible.
Josh is crumbling before our eyes.
I love both of those movies.
You may be a narcissist. Let's look deeply at ourselves if we love these movies. There is a Venn diagram in which we may be a narcissist. One other thing, a big part of the study was this idea of escapism, not just necessarily action movies specifically, but escaping into action movies. And when people tend to do that, narcissists tend to do it, whatever. One thing they started to find was that Christopher Nolan movies were consistently not on the list, which surprised them. And then they started to learn that it was because Christopher Nolan movies make you think too much. So Dark Knight is so low on that list because it was not a movie people felt that they can just turn on in the background and it makes them feel really good. Christopher Nolan movies make you think. They're difficult. They're hard. They deal with big, emotional, relatable problems. They're not like popcorn fun as much as these other ones, even though they fall into sort of action movie tropes in many ways. So food for thought.
What's crazy about Endgame is that it's part 2, basically, of like, it's like not even a standalone movie. Like, listen, I'm not disputing the narcissism. The other things, fine. But like, I could see with Die Hard and Endgame, those are pretty cut and dry in the sense of there's a bad guy and we're trying to beat the bad guy. Mm-hmm. But no, this is flawed art. This is none of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. And I'm going to do everything I can to get these people on the podcast. And I'm not going to be mad at them because I know they were just the middleman, but I would like to know because they didn't ask me.
You're going through all the emotions live that I went through during this panel. And it's a delight to see because I had an hour to do it and you have like seconds. Yeah, it's upsetting. And the question I had for them, which they did not have a satisfactory answer for, unfortunately, at least at this point in their study, is they did not go then into why these movies are this way. Like, what about this top 15 list is making depressed people choose them? I don't know. Like, what is the theme or what is the character? What is the story that is common in those 15 movies that is drawing these people to them? And similar with narcissists and Endgame and Die Hard. So like, that's the study I want to do or that like I want to know more about.
So during this incorrect panel, was anyone like groaning? Was there any murmurs?
Oh, yes. A lot of people were similarly upset because they saw some of their favorite movies on the top 15 worst list and some of their least favorite movies on the top 15 best list. So this is a conflicting thing, but these are the numbers. However, they did encourage people to help them have more data. So if you want to be a part of this study, Joshua, you can follow these guys at Marshall Yukon Family. And you can take their giant quiz about action movies. I actually think I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah.
They have a list of like 265 movies, they said. So this is a list of 15 from a really big list that probably includes all of our favorite movies.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was fascinating.
Bourne? They don't have Jason Bourne on any of these?
Bourne is not on any of these lists. Bond isn't even on these lists. Like,
Bond? They don't have a James Bond film on any of these?
No.
Anyway.
The last thing I'll say about Comic-Con. I went to the Critical Role panel and they showed a clip of my upcoming show there, and it was so cool because people laughed, and I was like, people are laughing at a thing that I thought was also funny.
Hell yeah.
So cool.
When does that come out?
Who knows?
Okay. I'm still focused on this thing you just talked about.
I know. I wish I could turn on a fan right now.
All right. Critical Role. That's good. That puts me back in a better place.
Yeah. We're done with Comic-Con now. We're moving on to, it's been a couple weeks since I've seen you. We've seen a lot of movies since I last saw you, and all in theaters, which, and also, by the way, the movie list coming out in August and September is so good. There's so much to see in theaters that I'm very excited by. So let's go. What have you seen?
I think we're going to enter spoiler territory here.
That's
little bit.
That's a good thing to say.
There's a little spoiler territory. So I'm sorry to everybody. But the main things that I've really wanted to talk with you about are 2 movies.
Okay.
Twisters.
Yeah.
And Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
So can we please start with Twisters?
Yes.
Because you recently saw it.
Last night?
I started Twisters, and I started to really like it, and then I started to really like it a lot more, and then I was like, I'm all in by the end, and then a day had passed, and I was like, I think I loved Twisters.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And there had been talk, I saw some reviews where people were like, this might be better than the first one, and I was trying to think, I was like, is it better than the first one? And then I was trying to take my emotions out of it, which, by the way, could have been on the action list that you just talked about. I was trying to take Jurassic Park as well. I was trying to take my emotions out of the love for the first one. Mm-hmm. And if I do that, I think there's a genuine argument that Twisters is a better movie than Twister.
I cannot believe you just said that.
I can't either, but I'm saying it.
Do I agree with that? I don't agree with that.
Okay.
I don't agree with it. However, I did love this movie.
You did?
Yes.
I'm not to keep talking here, but something I really loved about it. Perfect action summer movie. Perfect.
Perfect.
I felt like it was, listen, it's no Maverick, but if you're throwing movies that kind of make you feel one way while they're kind of paving a new path forward, I feel like Maverick, Twisters are kind of in the same vein of how I felt. And I felt like they did a really good job with you caring about the characters, and it was very character based throughout the entire movie. And I didn't think Glenn Powell was too over the top, which he could have been over the top. I really liked him. I thought all the characters were I was like, oh, this makes sense to me. I thought it was going to be silly, but I was just totally in on the characters.
I agree with you. I saw the trailer and I was like, I'm going to see this movie, obviously, because Twister is such a big part of my life growing up. And then as we were driving there, I told Paul, we all know what this movie is going to be. It's boy meets girl, blah, blah, blah. They get together by the end. Okay, whatever. And then you get into it and you're like, I mean, that is what it is, but it's coded in all of this nuance and character trauma and tragedy and incredible acting and directing. Mm-hmm. And it just proves that you can take such a simple story and execution-wise can elevate it to something more. And I was hooked in the whole thing. And at one point, you see it in the trailer, so this part's not a spoiler, but Twister hits some kind of refinery or something, and fire goes up the spout. I don't know. And Paul starts laughing next to me, and I could feel his body jolting as he's laughing, and I had to move my arm away from him because I was offended that he was laughing.
Not right now, Paul.
Don't do this to me right now. Because I was in, this is the hugest threat, and someone's in danger in that moment that you care about. All of that was, I thought, fantastic. And then we get out, and I was like, what'd you think? And Paul says, oh, I'd give that, a solid 7. I was like, 7?
Yeah.
That's a 10.
I think so, too.
I think this movie is kind of a perfect movie. I do not see a flaw in the execution of this movie.
And going to the plot, I suppose, or the story of it, what I thought was so clever is how they flipped kind of the story from the first one, in the sense where Glenn Powell was kind of in the group of people who were silly. You didn't buy it at first when you met him. You were kind of oh, these are she joins the outcasts at the end, which I thought was really smart. She started in a place that she had all the technology, everything. And then she reverted back to kind of the instincts and the whatever drove them to chase twisters and like the love of actually chasing tornadoes. And I just thought it was like really clever. Like they reverse engineered the first one from in that regard and just kind of did their own thing with it. And I was like, that was a great way. It was really well done.
It was. Yeah, like the guys who you think are the good guys end up being the bad guys in the end, which was a cool twist that you kind of see coming.
Yeah.
But not right away. Like when you first meet him and she's back in the game, you're like, this is great. This is so cool. She has what she needs to make real change. And then you're like, oh no, there's more going on. So it's cool that there were like A, B, and C stories as well in this whole thing.
Yeah.
I would say the only flaw is that her mom was not Helen Hunt.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing. I thought for sure it was
for sure.
But do you think that if it was her, she would have had to appear later in the movie?
Yeah.
Like as a hero?
Helen Hunt, like a bigger part in the movie? No,
yeah.
I don't think so. Okay. I think she could have been that mom character cut and paste Helen Hunt in there. Also, like, how did she get Dorothy in the opening teaser if Helen Hunt is not part of her?
So, do we think that was written for Helen Hunt, and they were like, "This is for Helen Hunt. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't."
Why isn't Helen Hunt in Twisters?
Yeah, let's do some digging.
Oh, interesting.
Did Helen Hunt say she can't do it without Bill Paxton?
So Lee Chung, the director, said that he felt like he didn't want to see Helen Hunt's character, Joe Harding, as like a shut-in homebody who wasn't still chasing her dream. And so that's why he didn't include Helen Hunt.
That's beautiful. I hate to say it, but it's beautiful. Right?
Is that just a cop-out?
Well, I don't know.
Well, that's the version we get, and that makes me sad. But I mean, I guess I understand that, and you're right. It is beautiful if it's true.
I think it is true. I'm gonna buy it.
Okay.
If it's not, I think you're absolutely right. But the director did Minari, which is awesome. That he went from Minari to Twisters.
I love it.
Yeah. Okay. What were you gonna say?
Career, whatever. What did you think of the romance in Twisters?
I actually kind of loved it. Like I read something, there was some thing that they were upset they didn't kiss or something, like some weird thing that I get it, right? Like it wasn't like the kiss in the airport love story type thing, but I also thought it was done really well because she was still grieving over her ex-boyfriend that she had lost in a tornado from years ago, and that was kind of the trauma that she was dealing with, part of it throughout the entire story. And I was thinking about it, and it's such a delicate balance. I was actually, now that I'm thinking about it even more, I think it's great that she just had an emotional connection with Glenn Powell that is going to go the distance at some point in the future, but we just don't see it in the movie.
I love that too. That's beautiful. You're so right.
Yeah, they did it.
That's so good.
You don't need a kiss at the end.
No, you get it.
You totally get it. Wow. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
So this is going to be a great segue because I watched it and I thought to myself, is this the movie of the summer? And then a week later, I went to Deadpool and Wolverine.
What a fucking summer. God bless America.
All right, let me hear your thoughts. Give me your Deadpool Wolverine thoughts.
11 out of 10. I fucking love this movie.
Okay.
Look, IGN is out there saying we deserve better than all this fourth wall joke cracking. And I don't think we do, because I loved it so much. I think I loved it more than you, Josh. But some of the epicness of this movie, just the fan service in the best ways of just how they shot some of the action sequences, some of the slow-mo leaping out of cars and landing was just straight out of the best version of the comic book art. And it makes you feel like a child in this like wonderful way. I just loved it.
I might be diving a little deep into Deadpool Wolverine here.
Do it.
I think that you liked it a little more than I did. And I really liked it. And I think when you watch it as like a buddy comedy type movie, it works a little better because I was, if I being honest. There were a lot of tongue-in-cheek fourth wall breaking that I was like, okay. Like this is it almost to me at certain points it took away from the characters and like caring about the story. And
do you remember like what moments took you out of it? Like which fourth wall breaking?
This wasn't it, but like the one that just comes to mind is when the long-haired Ryan Reynolds, like right before that epic part where he puts a mask on, he like looks at the TV and is like, the proposal. And I was just like, all right, like, and like also he makes a comment about Gossip Girl, which is funny, but like it's also geared towards his wife, I think. And it's things like when you do that, it's like, are we caring about his relationship with his girlfriend in the movie? Or are you caring, like, is it like, it's just this weird balance that I actually think they managed to do. And it's a very fun movie, but there was just certain moments. Did he call Hugh Jackman Hugh at some point? Or like the Wolverine character?
I think so.
It's shit like that. It's just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on right now.
It's confusing, but it's also like that's Deadpool from the comics taken to like the nth degree, I think. But I loved being in on the joke. I thought that was very fun. And I thought the proposal one was funny only
because
I think it worked because Deadpool's comment back to that was like, you think that's just what I do?
Yeah.
I just turn to the camera and say random shit. That's not what I do.
Yeah.
And that was funny. Like it's making double fun of itself in a weird way.
Yeah. I get it.
I mean, I will allow that people feel that way because obviously do. You're not the only one. There are big headlines out there that are like, it's too much. So clearly that's a common thread, but it wasn't for me.
The Hugh Jackman Wolverine character, who I think is probably my favorite, like in comic books.
Yeah.
Or in the comic book movies. The scene that really stuck out was the car when he's just yelling at him and he's acting in like this dramatic sense, screaming at Ryan Reynolds or screaming at Deadpool about he can't hold a relationship and no wonder people don't want to be around you. I was like, this is incredible acting, and I buy every word he's saying. And I feel like Hugh Jackman to Ryan Reynolds is like the most perfect pairing where you have this dramatic role mixed with this guy who can't be serious. Obviously, they're aware of it, but I was like, holy shit. Like, I feel like without Wolverine, this would have gone off the rails in a major way.
100% agree. Yeah, it was so perfect. And I guess it's a fairly common pairing in like these buddy cop movies, right? Where you have like the straight man versus the like crazy guy. But this was like the perfect version of that. And you're right. Like the movie, I think, works because Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is so traumatized and so dark and brooding and not a fun guy that you need that grounding and that like gravity in a movie where he's fucking talking about Blake Lively and the proposal.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay. Can you kind of keep talking about it?
I just forever.
Something that kind of, I was kind of like, at first, but then what I ended up really loving about the movie was they obviously take a lot of shots at 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
But what I thought was really clever, and this might have been like the entire theme of the movie, was that, so the idea is basically Ryan Reynolds, or Deadpool, excuse me, is trying to, save his friends. And it's like this group of people that, are going to be forgotten. And he ends up teaming up with these quote unquote forgotten superheroes within like the Fox universe that like the Elektra, the Blade, the Channing Tatum, and I can't remember who else, but like, I thought it was just a very clever way to basically mirror his issues that he's having with his friends. It's like these like outcasts that he ends up teaming up with, and that's the team he's in. It's like it was like a mirror of his friends. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
I don't know. I thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah, me too.
I've got one last thing.
Yeah.
I'll stop talking about this. Something I love. So Like a Prayer by Madonna happens to be one of my favorite songs.
I love that.
So much so, even before Deadpool Wolverine, I felt as though if that song was released today, without any context of anyone ever knowing, like I feel like that song can be released in any generation and it would be a great song.
I agree with that.
So I was very happy to hear it.
Are you crying?
And when Wolverine put his fucking mask on.
It's so good!
And that scene against all the Deadpools, I was like, holy fucking shit.
It's so great. I sent Josh a clip, and I don't even know where I found it on Instagram, but it's Hugh Jackman watching for the first time that final climactic action fight on like a laptop on a airplane. I think Sean Levy just handed it to him and is like, watch this. This is our first V1. And just his reaction is pure joy. And that's how I felt the whole movie. Mm-hmm. It's again, like with Twisters, like you just sort of, you feel like a kid again watching these things.
That's it. That's all. That's all I'm going to say about those movies.
Can I bring up one movie that we've not discussed yet?
I didn't know there were any more, but yeah, go ahead.
Quiet Place Day One.
Oh, I just started to watch that last night.
No way.
Yeah.
You stopped halfway, or like, what's the deal?
You want to know the truth?
Yes.
I was like, hey, Amelia.
Oh, no.
Do you want to see an alien invasion? Without fully knowing what I was getting myself into. And this was at like 9:00 at night.
Oh, no.
It was a little scary.
Yeah.
Kind of freaked her out.
Yeah.
I had to pause it. And then I had to
Was she crying?
She wasn't crying. But I definitely, I would not show an 8-year-old A Quiet Place Day One to anyone who has children.
I feel like the audience already knows that.
Yeah. So anyway, I was like, I'm going to pick this back up tomorrow.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Well, I don't think I want to talk about it now that you haven't seen it, because you don't know the story. So when you see it, we'll talk about the story. I think it's very unique.
I'm like 20 minutes in, so I'm excited.
Okay.
Can I say one last thing about something?
Yeah.
Presumed Innocent?
Yeah.
Have you watched any of this on Apple?
I have not. This is the Jake Gyllenhaal show?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just started that as well.
Okay.
Man, this show is awesome.
Is it?
I'm only 2 episodes in.
Huh.
But I'm in.
The concept and the fact that it's Jake Gyllenhaal, after having just seen Roadhouse, I was like, yeah, I'm absolutely going to watch this. And then I saw the full trailer and I was like, oh, this is boring.
Yeah.
It's a guy who clearly killed this woman because he slept with her and is lying about it. So I'm good. So it's not that. It's more interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen the Harrison Ford one?
I have seen this and don't remember it at all.
Yeah. Someone talked about it in our Act 2 Patreon. And I didn't even engage in the conversation because I didn't want to see a spoiler. So I just let it go. But there's a twist. Something happens at the end of this series that I need to know. It's 8 episodes, 45 minutes. I'm in.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
That's all.
All right. Quote of the day.
Quote of the day.
If writing a feature screenplay is impossible, write a short script. If writing 10 pages is impossible, write 1 page. If writing 1 page is impossible, write a paragraph. Bong Joon-ho. Please remember to rate and subscribe. Follow us at ActTwoWriters for more awesome writing stuff. You can follow me, Tasha, at Story Thursday on Instagram or on Twitter at Tasha 3.0.
And I am Joshua Hallman on Twitter, Josh Hallman on Instagram. And
as always, the Act 2 podcast is a production of Act 2, a network and support group for the everyday working screenwriter. This episode was edited by Paul Lundquist.